All right, so let's get started. So let's look at the bad news first. This just came out. Of course, last week you saw 3.3 million unemployment claims 7 days ago. And then this just out from the Wall Street Journal, 6.6 million unemployment claims just this week. So that's staggering, and everyone expects it to get worse. However, in South Dakota, right, I wanted to show you the news article here, had 6,600 from last week, setting another record. But there is a silver lining in this. So 2 weeks ago, we had 1,700 jobless claims in South Dakota. This last week, about 6,600 came in. But South Dakota is still in last place of all 50 states for unemployment claims. So only 1.43% of the workforce has placed jobless claims in South Dakota. And just to show you what that looks like compared to other states, you can see here the states with the largest shares of unemployment: Hawaii, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, versus the states with the lowest shares of unemployment. And South Dakota is hanging out right there down the bottom, competing with Wyoming. So obviously the people who have lost their job, that's not good news. And yet for the entire state and our ability to recover, it certainly is a whole lot easier to recover when you have less to recover from. So that's the good news in all of this, if there is any. Well, let's take a look at how we're faring in terms of rent. One of the big questions we had, even as we started talking and sending out videos and content to everyone almost 3 weeks ago now, is how is it going to go come April 1st and by extension May 1st and June 1st as rents come due? So here's what I want to show you. What we're seeing is I pulled reports on how our portfolio is faring. Now, don't get stuck on the numbers so much as look at the trends. So this first blue section here is the rents as of the delinquent rents as of the first of the month. So I waited till the second to pull this, so it's the full. So we're pulling apples for apples. So as of the first in April right here, so this is April 1st, we were at say 73,000 was still owed. Now you can see all the way back a full 12 months, all the way to April of the previous year, nothing is lower than that. So what this tells us is that people definitely are paying their rent, paying it on time, paying it early. Here's the average, right, up here at about 90,000. So April was significantly better than average. And then we did the same thing. I did this morning as of the second. This has gotten not as good, right? So it's still much below average, but it's December actually beat it by a few thousand. However, still good. Now, what I anticipate is going to happen is that this is going to, as I continue to push this out, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, whatever, what I expect to happen is that this is going to get worse, so to speak, because there's going to be people who can't pay or were waiting for unemployment benefits to come in. So that's going to start overall getting worse. I know I've just talked about this, but just to put it in context, right? Residents are paying their rent earlier than average. And doing it more than the previous 12 months. And because the cash is not going to start flowing from the help programs until later this month, right? Some people are going to have to be on payment plans for the first 2, maybe 3 weeks until some of that cash starts coming in from the state and the federal government. And we're, of course, putting and working to help those folks find a payment plan that works for them, help them get signed up and apply for the things that they can apply for. And so as we've messaged that out to residents, if I've lost my job, how do I pay the rent? So just to give you, again, put this in context, the average Sioux Falls rent is about $836 a month. Now the One Sioux Falls Fund, which we've talked about before, is paying up to 70% of the rent. Just for interest's sake, the state unemployment max that you can get is about $1,400 a month, and it goes down from there depending on how much money you did make. However, the CARES Act has really kicked in a lot of additional benefits. So for example, self-employed or gig workers, so like Uber or DoorDash or what have you, those folks are not normally covered under unemployment insurance. They are now covered. Also, there's that additional $600 per week or $400 per month. And that's going to last for the next 120 days all the way through the end of July 31. And that's added on top of the unemployment benefit. Add to that the one-time payment of $1,200 per adult or $500 per child. And if you take those three things, right, you take the $1,400, add that to the 24, that's $3,800. Then you add another 12 to that, and you're looking at about $5,000 in April for an unemployed person. Add to that, if the Sioux Falls Fund pays 70% of that $800 rent, say they're paying about $650, right? In April, later on this month, unemployed people are going to have plenty of cash to pay this month's rent and probably even next month's rent with very little problem. Now, certainly it's unsettling, and yet there's more benefits available than people who lost their job, say, in February or January. So that's the people that are unemployed. This one in the middle goes to everyone, regardless if they're employed or not. Then there's this Paycheck Protection Program. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But that's really for people who are still employed. That's where they're going to see the benefit. And then you have the no student loan payments for 6 months. So that just decreases the amount of expense that someone has. So let's look at the One Sioux Falls Fund. So what we know so far is that just in the last week, the donations really kicked up. I think Denny Sanford put in about $1 million, and the city, I believe, matched that. So there's over $3 million in donations from the city, county, and private donors. As of a couple of days ago, there was 1,700 applications, and you can see that's totally in line with the amount of unemployment claims that we've had. 398 of those applicants have already been approved, and I'm sure more have been approved even in the last couple of days. And over $233,000 has already been sent out, and those payments are getting sent directly to the landlords. The property owners are not going to the tenants. It'll pay up to 70% of the rent, and then it's only for tenants who have lost jobs. So originally it was kind of set up to also help homeowners, but homeowners are getting different help through the CARES Act. And then it's only for tenants who have lost jobs, and they can't be behind on the rent. They can't have been not paying January or February's rent and then come and ask for help from this fund. That's not what it's for. It's specifically for the folks who were working, paying their bills, and now through no fault of their own have lost their work. And we've had several residents already contact us, say they've been approved, and those funds are on the way. So let's cover the Paycheck Protection Act. This is specifically for small businesses. It's April 3rd. The applications are going to begin today. If you've not heard this, man, you almost have to be living under a rock, because it seems like everybody's talking about it. It was on the radio this morning. It's in practically every email I get. It's in the news. But essentially what this looks like is you apply through your local bank, not through the SBA. And even though the 3rd was when they're supposed to be accepting applications, of course, with a program this size and complexity, they've already hit snags and speed bumps. And so most banks are not even accepting the applications yet. There's about 155 million workers in America, and 47% of those are employed by small business. So that is a significant part of the economy that's going to be impacted by this program. So about 73 million Americans work for the businesses with 500 or fewer employees. And really the goal for this was, rather than have all these small businesses who are at idle right now lay off or furlough their workers and then have them all hit the unemployment, this was a way to keep businesses and workers connected and just get those workers paid through the businesses directly. And the idea here is the economy can recover so much quicker if workers stay employed and can take off as soon as we all get back to work. So what are the benefits? If you haven't heard about it, you can borrow up to 2.5 times your average payroll. As long as you keep your employees working for the next 8 weeks, 8 weeks worth of that loan can be forgiven. Now, interestingly, the self-employed and gig workers also qualify for this. So you have to just figure out what your, you don't really have a salary as self-employed, but what your income was, and you also may qualify for this. Now, keep in mind, you can't use the payroll protection and the unemployment insurance at the same time, so you have to figure out which one is going to work better for you. And you can use it to pay payroll, rent, utilities, and interest. And then we have talked about this before, but I just wanted to mention it again, because we're talking about rent week and people paying rent or their inability to pay rent. If for whatever reason the resident can't pay rent, if you have a federally backed loan, there is loan forbearance for those properties. Keep in mind, though, that forbearance is not the same as deferment. Once forbearance is up, you really technically owe everything the next day. So you need to work with your loan servicer to come up with a payment plan. And just for a quick example, what that might look like, say the normal payment was $1,000 a month. If you push that off for 6 months, they might allow you to agree to make an extra $100 payment per month for the next 5 years to get you back on track. Okay, that's what we have for today, so I'm glad to take any questions. Also, quick before I do that, Kareen just set this up for us. You can scan this QR code with your phone. It'll take you to a page where you can enter your email, and then you'll be entered to receive our updates with new videos and content and latest of the things that are happening, and so that you can stay up to date and informed on your rental property in Sioux Falls.
And we'll also get that published to our website.
Okay, and we'll publish it to our website as well.
So as an employee, how would I get the payroll protection program started?
Yeah, so keep in mind, of course, the PPP, as it's being called, is not for employees directly. It's going to go through your employer. So if your employer doesn't know, and there are folks that don't know, especially the whole self-employed and gig worker piece. Now, like I literally learned that this morning as I was studying this. As I was looking through it, I came across that. So I didn't even know that this morning. And so there's a really good chance that a lot of people don't know, don't understand, don't know what they need to do. So if you're an employee working for a small business owner, just ask them, say, hey, do you know about this? Do you plan to apply? Help them out, make that offer, right? Be valuable to your boss who has so much on his plate right now, trying to keep the wheels on. Be a resource for them.
What documents would be needed for a small business owner to apply for the PPP?
That's a really great question. So from what I've seen, basically, it's going based upon your average payroll for the last year. And anytime you're applying for a government program, there's all these different things and hoops and they have to jump through and qualifications. But from what I've seen, they're looking for your average payroll for the last 12 months. And so you got to be able to prove that. So you got to pull that out of your QuickBooks, your ADP, your Paycheck.com, whatever you're using to process payroll, to show this was my average payroll. They'll be asking you for things like prove your IRA or 401k contributions, your healthcare contributions. So if you're paying for your employees' healthcare, they're looking for those invoices. What else is on there? Essentially, just be able to prove what it is you're asking for. So all the documentation they want to see backed up.
As a owner of investment real estate, could I qualify for the payroll protection program?
I don't know the answer to that question. So I could just stop there, or I could extrapolate. From what I can see, right, it's specifically for paycheck protection. So it's trying to pay the payroll of your employees. Now that's extended to self-employed people, but if a property doesn't have payroll, maybe you could say you're self-employed. I mean, it'd be a hard stretch to make. I think they're probably going to go more to the loan forbearance piece. So I don't know, but my guess would, if I had to guess, I'd say not, but I could be wrong.
So with all the programs that are available out there to help people who are unemployed, how much money could an unemployed person expect to collect?
Well, if you look, we kind of went back through that, and this is totally dependent upon who you are, what you made previously, what state you live in. There's so many different pieces to this, but we kind of went through, the max in South Dakota, 1,400. You get this additional 24 on top of that, so that if you add that together, that's 3,800. There's this one-time payment of 12, so that's now you're up to 5,000. If you got some kids, maybe you got 2 kids, that's 6,000. You got a wife or a husband, now you're up to 7,200, just in April alone. Now, if you ended up with, say, you got 2 people that are employed in that household, you can imagine you're looking at maybe you're north of 10,000 just for April.
How does somebody go about applying for the One Sioux Falls Fund?
So that's being administered through Helpline Center. So go to helplincenter.org or just Google One Sioux Falls Fund. It's one of the top links, and there's an online application. Keep in mind, though, they are going to ask you to, who your employer is, and they will be contacting or reaching out to your employer to verify that you have lost hours or have lost a job.
So as a property owner, what should I do if my residents refuse to pay rent? Am I allowed to evict? Can I charge late fees?
It depends. So it depends on what state you're in, right? So we're talking about South Dakota specifically. Right now, statewide and citywide, there's no moratorium on evictions overall. Other states, there's lots of states that have put something in place, also cities, and they're different across the board. It also depends on what kind of a mortgage you have, right? So we just covered the forbearance, but I think it's section 4024 that has the eviction moratorium. If you have a federally backed loan, FHA, VA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and there's a few other programs in there, if you are financed that way, you cannot evict them for the next 120 days. It doesn't relieve their responsibility to pay you rent, though. So after 120 days, they need to pay 100% of the rent, or you could evict them at that point. Other banks may follow suit. I haven't seen any of that yet. And then, of course, it's the practical matter of, could you even get an eviction through the court at this point, right? I mean, as we're pretty much in lockdown yet, are the courts even in session? Will the sheriff execute the writ of possession? So those are all practical, pragmatic considerations. So it really depends. Much better to work with people. Figure out, here's what I want to see, right? As a landlord, I want to see here, this is what I need to make happen. As a tenant, this is what you're looking to make happen. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out how can we make this and work it out together, and so that we both win. Because at the end of the day, as a landlord, I need the resident. At the end of the day, the resident needs a place to live. And so that's what a market is. That's what a business is. We need each other. We need customers, and they need what we have to offer.
Well, this is all feeling a little complicated. Is there anybody who can help to walk me through how this might apply to my property?
Yeah. So as a rental property owner, you want to have a team of people, right? You should have your accountant, your attorney, a property manager, somebody to help you with maintenance, right? At the end of the day, you can't do it all. Obviously, that's why we're putting out these videos to help walk people through. If you're our client, please set up a time to talk with us. We're happy to give you whatever information we can. And we're always happy to help. So we'll continue to pump out content. Reach out to us, reach out to someone else in your area as a property manager. If they don't know, just keep finding, and there's people out there that want to help you during this time.
Great. Well, that's all the questions that we've got for today.
All right, great. We'll try to do this again for sure on Friday and just kind of bring you whatever updates, because things change so rapidly that it's tough to keep on top of it. So thank you so much and have a great day.